making an assumption, it appears as though that he may have been attempting to kick the officer off the side of the vehicle. The officer at this point drew his weapon, fired numerous rounds, struck the motorist of the vehicle numerous times. It appears at this point then the officer was able to get the car slowed where they both came out of the vehicle. The motorist sort of tumbled out of the driver's side of the vehicle. The officer tumbled off of the car, and the speed of the vehicle at this point was much slower. The officer immediately got up because the vehicle had continued going westbound on Kensington at a very slow speed at this time. Knowing that there was still a 6-year-old in the car, the officer immediately got up and started sprinting down Kensington Avenue westbound, chasing after the vehicle on foot. The vehicle came to a slow and finally stopped, bumping into the curb. I'm not sure if it hit a fence, but it stopped. It was a very slow speed stopping of the vehicle. The officer continued sprinting toward that passenger side of the vehicle, was able to get the door open, and quickly pulled the child out and quickly checked the status of the child, who was uninjured, thankfully. This was an extremely rapidly evolving situation that showed absolutely no signs of anything going south, for that matter, during the entire length of the traffic stop. The traffic stop, by all accounts, appeared to be very routine, very professional, very courteous, and this was both directions, the officer to the motorist to the officer. The vehicle had gone another probably 100 or so yards beyond the point of where the motorist had fallen out of the vehicle. Going back a bit, when the vehicle took off with the officer attached to the side of the vehicle, the passenger police officer ran and got into the driver's side of the police car and then followed in the direction of that vehicle. When the secondary police officer got to the intersection of Kensington and Wyoming, that's where the motorist was laying in the street. That we don't believe at this point that that secondary officer would have known that a shooting had taken place, but the officer got out, checked the condition of that individual, who was obviously severely wounded, but showed signs of still being alive at that point. Other officers quickly arrived on scene and immediately began first aid. They used a trauma kit. They were putting patches on the several gunshot wounds. They were doing everything they could to administer first aid. The original officer, who was at this point had been chasing after the car, running after the car to try to get to the child, during that was also calling out on the radio that shots were fired, that the suspect was down, that he needed an ambulance right away, and was calling for an ambulance. So there was a lot that was being done in this compact amount of time to get first aid and to get aid to that injured person. The injured person was transported by AMR to ECMC, at which point he was pronounced dead at the hospital. Homicide investigators and internal affairs, as is normal protocol, was called out to the scene. The Attorney General's office, which again is by executive order, was also contacted by Buffalo Police. Those Attorney General's office investigators arrived at the scene and at Buffalo Police headquarters, working side by side with Buffalo homicide detectives. They worked with the investigators, obtaining information, obtaining evidence. They all simultaneously watched the body camera video. They were all able to see it for the first time together. The investigation is continuing. As the day went on today, a search warrant was written by homicide detectives, was reviewed, and was reviewed by the Attorney General's office, was presented to a judge. A search warrant was signed for the vehicle in question, which is not registered to the subject in the vehicle, and a loaded 9mm Taurus handgun was located underneath the driver's seat just a few hours ago, maybe about an hour and a half ago or so. That gun was loaded with 7 rounds, 1 in the chamber and 6 in the magazine. The investigation is going to be ongoing. It's going to be lengthy. There's a lot of information that will be obtained. The Attorney General's office is the lead agency, the lead prosecuting agency, not the District Attorney's office by executive order. The DA's office is not involved in this case. It is the Attorney General's office, so all information will be flowing through the Attorney General's office, but it will be a lengthy process. We will be working on that. As far as the body camera video, again, we have reviewed it. As is our normal protocol, homicide detectives have been in contact on several occasions with family members. Those family members have been offered an opportunity, and I believe will be taking up the opportunity to view that body camera video. Once that is done, and out of courtesy to the family, we are going to again present that to the family, and then we will release that body camera video. It's possible that that could happen tomorrow. We will keep all the media updated on when that body camera video will be released. With that, I will take any questions, and again, I'll be very limited in what answers I can provide at this point. Once the body camera video is released, I will be able to get into more information, but I will take any questions at this point.
How's the officer?
So, thank you for asking that question. I always appreciate that question. The driver officer sustained minor injuries, went to ECMC, was treated and released, but this is an extremely traumatic. I was horrified watching this video. I was horrified for the officer. That officer could have been severely injured or killed had it turned out any other way, had he not taken the action that he took. And I can't imagine being the partner officer watching your partner being driven away at a high rate of speed. And we're talking, again, speeds over 60 miles an hour. So I had an opportunity, at least I reached out to them by text message. At this point, Deputy Commissioner and other members and the Chief had an opportunity last night to at least speak with them briefly, and then we will be following up more with them. But there are resources that are available, and I've encouraged them to take advantage of those resources. So thank you for that question.
Can you talk about the identities of the people involved?
So once the body camera video is released, we will release identities. As is our normal protocol, we typically wait about 24 hours before we release names. We want to give families an opportunity. I know some of the media has already put out an identity. We did not release that. That's up to family members or friends if they want to release names. But once the body camera video is released, then we will release identities.
Can you talk again? Also, the officer was holding on to the roof?
No, so.
How is he hanging on?
Well, I can only go by what I saw in the video at this point. We have not interviewed the officers yet. And there's legal reasons why interviews with the involved officers have not occurred yet. However, when the officer opened the door was wide open, and the officer stood to the side to allow the motorist out of the vehicle, and it appears that he just had his arm and his hand on top of the door frame of the vehicle when the vehicle accelerated immediately. And at that point, it's just reaction, I think, to hold on. I don't know if he was dragged or if he was able to get his foot onto the door frame of the vehicle. So again, that's something that we'll be able to determine at a later date when interviews are conducted with the officers.
In that officer's video and the other officer's body cam, they were both on?
They were both on. They were on just as the vehicle, as they made the decision to pull that vehicle over, when they engaged their lights, that video was running from that point on. So we have everything captured on video. And I can't speak highly enough of the importance of body camera video and having body cameras, officers using body cameras. This tells not the whole story, but it tells a significant amount of a story. It allows the police department to be very transparent, and it allows everybody to see exactly what happened within the confines of that video. Of course, interviews, detectives will be looking for other surveillance videos. They're doing video canvasses, they did, and we'll look for any other angles of everything else. We're putting a whole story together, if you will, but I just can't stress enough how important body camera video is and how important it is to have it on as soon as humanly possible before an interaction begins.
I know you can't speak to exact identities, but this child who was in the car, was there some sort of relation there, or who was that?
So the deceased is not the father of the child. Whether there's any family connection, I don't know exactly sure how what connection there is, but the child was reunited with the mother who lived very nearby relatively quick.
And how was the child?
The child was physically fine. Like I said, the officer's primary focus was that child. The embrace that he put on that child, getting him out of the car and checking to make sure he was okay. It's very young child, but physically he was okay. And I hope that they will get some help for the child to help process this.
And he fired shots, right?
Yes.
The child did not get hit.
once the vehicle was coming to a much slower speed, and I don't want to say almost stopped, but they had really come to a much reduced speed. The operator of the vehicle then kind of I don't want to say lunged, but kind of leaned out of the car, and they both came out of the car at that point, and then the car continued to roll down the street.
And then it hit like the gate or something.
It hit, yeah, it looks like it hit like a curb and then maybe into a fence, a gate, or something of that nature.
They both kept running,
I'm sorry?
and they both kept running, the wounded man?
No, the wounded man remained in the intersection. The officer got up and immediately ran after the vehicle to go to the child. Go ahead, Jess.
How many shots were fired?
It appears 5. Right now, it looks like 5 shots were fired.
Hit all 5 hit?
Yes,
Hit.
yes.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry, can you just name like the points on Kensington, so like where it was first pulled over, where he was shot, and then where the car ultimately ended up?
So it was on Kensington, right by the intersection of Polteny. The shots were fired at Kensington and Wyoming, and then the car rolled further on just short of Federal Avenue, where it went into a kind of a fence in the curb. So the whole length of it is about 1/3 of a mile.
Anyone else?
Just one more, with the stop, it was for tinted windows, I thought.
There was there was a speeding. The officer had, in the conversation, the officer had advised that there was excessive speed and excessively tinted windows. And then upon the stop, it was then shown that that child was in the front seat, who was too small of weight size and age, and also was not wearing a seatbelt, but should not have been in the front seat of the vehicle anyways, but also did not have a seatbelt on. And then during the subsequent action where the driver took off, the child also through that process did not have a seatbelt on. There is a portion of the video when the vehicle was stopped. It appeared as though the child went to put the seatbelt on, but the seatbelt was not on. What happened with that, I don't know, but the seatbelt was not on after that.
Was that initial citation or I believe the officer the excessive speed on Kensington or at a different point? Or?
That I don't know. So when the body camera came on, these body cameras have a 30-second buffering period. So you have to get, once you activate a body camera, everything from that point on, audio is on. But it goes back and it buffers 30 seconds back. So we can see them operating the police vehicle and driving. When that buffering period ends and the audio comes on, the officer is actually commenting about movement inside the vehicle. When the officer approaches, and again, it could not have been any more professional, cordial, low-key, but he explained to them that it was excessive speed and that there was tinted windows, and the officer had asked the motorist to lower the back windows to see in. The officer immediately observed the young child and decided, well, you know, you can't have a child like that in the front seat of the vehicle, especially without a seatbelt.
In terms of time, how long was the officer hanging on to that car while it was moving?
That's, I don't know, I didn't calculate, probably, I don't know, 15 seconds, 10 seconds, 50, it was a very short amount of time. The entire time from when the body camera was activated until the conclusion was probably about less than 9 minutes. A little more body camera that went beyond that, but we're talking an entire interaction of about 9 minutes, maybe 8.5, 9 minutes.
From the time they stopped.
From the time the officer activated the body camera and the motors pulled over immediately for the lights when the lights went on the police car.
And what time was that?
About 12:10 a.m., roughly, give or take.
Okay, we good? Is it clear who the car was registered to? Like,
We have that information.
location though?
We have all that information. We're not going to get in at this point. We're not going to get into identifying the registered motorist or the registered owner of the vehicle.
Was it kind of stolen or?
It was not stolen. The vehicle's not stolen. No.
All right, thanks everybody, I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.